Hi everyone, we are going to continue our weekly discussion group. Today I'm Tanya and here is Sally. We are doing the group together today, and we are on chapter 2, 3 and 4 actually. We are going to start with a brief overview of chapter 2 and 3. And so chapter 2 is on history and methodology, and chapter 3 is on test results and interpretation, and it also introduces the map of consciousness that Dr. David Hawkins came up with. So let's look at chapter 2. It's page 55. Okay. So this chapter is introducing us to the kinesiology, and it talks about, in historical background, it talks about kinesiology and that it was used first for medical purposes and just to see how different organs are connected to these different muscles, and muscles go weak. Those muscles that are connected to specific organs, they go weak, and that was research that started in 1970s by Dr. George Goodhart in Detroit, Michigan.
In terms of history, is there a recorded history of that being used
Further back?
Further back?
Not that I know of.
Because, and I think I had said this before some time ago, I was doing some training in Utah with some Head Start staff and parents, and I had a group of Native Americans there who were from the Paiute tribe from southern Utah. I had never actually heard of the Paiutes before that time, but we were having a conversation about the truth and how do you know when somebody's, I don't remember the conversation, and they shared that it was tribal knowledge. They didn't even know how far back it went. That and they did it exactly the same way. You know, hold your arm out and start out by saying, ask some like your name, so you know that's the truth, and then they said that they use it like with their children to see when they're their children, and the children know that it works, so they don't even try to lie because
because it's evident.
Because it's evidence.
Yeah.
And but they said that they had learned from their parents who had learned from their parents and so on and so forth.
It's very
they
interesting.
Didn't really know how far back it went, but they described it, and we did it in exactly the same way. I
first learned it in about 2009, 2010, when I took my first energy psychology class, and it was Psyche. It's spelled PSYCHK. And so it's a method that is a method of balancing the energy. It's in the same family of methods as EFT and TFT and other methods. That's how I started using it. But I didn't know that's an interesting information that is actually somewhere in the knowledge base.
And at the time, I didn't even know to ask the question about how else is it used and how else is it used, because it came up as part of another conversation. They didn't talk about using it for any kind of medical diagnosis, but it could be because they had so many healers within their community that it's quite possible, since they all knew of it, I mean, it wasn't a secret practice, that perhaps it was being used in other ways as well. I'd be interested now to go back and see if there's a way to research that. Yeah, it
also shows that they were very much connected to the body and using the body for healing purposes. So that's good. If you would like, we can also practice, like seeing how it works. Have you ever done it? Yeah, you've done it. Okay, so then we don't.
Because I brought that practice back and used it with my own children, who were teenagers at the time, and shared that with my staff. And family.
It's
so.
very helpful to check the beliefs, the validity of beliefs, and actually what the person believes in, and because sometimes there could be a shift or like a block that when somebody says that I want to get better and test it and it would go down, it just means that there could be a reversal, major energy reversal, and it happens a lot with serious traumatic experiences. And then, but correcting it with energy psychology methods, it's very easy to correct that reversal. And then there is a desire and energy to make some changes. So then later in this same chapter, he talks about the work of Dr. Diamond. The first, basically the first record of using it for not for medical purposes, but to look at behavioral responses. So that was historical background. Then he describes the testing technique, which is very simple. That he just said, let's calibrate the levels of consciousness on a logarithmic scale from 0 to 1000, and just asking, is it over this level? Is it over 100? Is it over 200? Yes or no? Because with muscle testing, it's a yes or no response. And then, is it over 300? So if when the answer is no, then he says we can go at a smaller scale to check where exactly is that level. And that's how the testing was going until it goes weak. He also mentions on page 61 that to check the validity, it should be a declarative statement. So it's a positive statement. This level
has to have a yes or no answer.
Yes.
I was just thinking about what we were talking about a minute ago in terms of, again, the history. That technique and the use of that technique, I can't think would have been isolated within just one tribe.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting, again, because so many things that were used in primitive cultures, maybe back thousands of years, are being embraced by science, because now we have ways to measure, like we talk about the calibration. That would not have been done, on a reservation or within a family unit, but the results were still pretty reliable.
Yeah, it's a good question. I wonder is there any record of this that we could access? But it's very interesting that they used it. So is there anything that stood out to you in chapter 2? Maybe we can look at it, because I don't think I have any questions or comments on the methodology itself. It's very straightforward.
Yeah, no, I don't think so.